begin this session. This session has been organized under the aegis of the Industry 4.0 Expert Committee of the BCIC. We'd like to specially thank Mr. A. Chandramouli, who's the chairman of the Industry 4.0 Expert Committee and the former president of the BCIC. For the today's session, we have the speaker, Mr. Binith Ashok, who is a subject matter expert. Before we could start, I would just brief the speaker and the moderator. The moderator for today's session is Mr. A. Chandramouli, Chairman of the Industry 4.0 Expert Committee of BCIC and the former President of BCIC. He brings in over 3 decades of industrial career and has been in leadership position in diverse industries such as machine tool, electrical industry, consumer durables, consumer products, trucks. He is also the founder and director of the Aerospace Sectoral Council, representing the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. To augment the efforts of BCIC, he has collaborated with BCIC, CIT and later with HAL, thus giving the necessary credibility and sustainability to the council. He has set up vocational training centers at Starag and also at Makino to impart skill for CNC machine tool industry, both for skill demands of his captive requirements as well as his customer requirements. He set up many technology centers also at Makino. He is also highly passionate for strategic alliance, Industry 4.0, industrial product marketing, innovation, quality management, best practices, world-class manufacturing, and skilling initiatives. To have a clear focus on customer orientation in organizations he has worked for. He has also contributed to the industry and society through his position as a chairman of QCFI Quality Circle Forum of India, Karnataka, president of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, member of the Manufacturing Committee in CI, Executive Committee of member of IMTMA, and championing for ease of doing business in Global Investors Meet in Government of Karnataka. With the rich experience Mr. Chandramouli sir carries. The speaker for today's session is Mr. Binith Ashok. Binith is the subject matter expert in the field of enterprise business process automation and low-code application development. He has designed and delivered complex automation solutions to the corporates around the globe. Close to his 2 decades of his rich experience in leading IT strategy and delivering software solutions to both Fortune 500 and startup enterprises spread across industry verticals. Led geographically distributed teams to deliver the multi-million transformation programs. So we'd also like to give a brief about the company from where he represents the web peripherals. We like to really appreciate the web peripherals for supporting this today's session. Web is a 20-year-old listed company. Web was initially known as Wipro e-Peripherals, which was part of the Wipro. In 2000, it became an independent entity with pan-India presence and 600 plus large to mid-sized trusted customers. The company has multiple solution offering like print services, document management system, workflow automation, GST filing, and e-invoice. May I now hand over the proceedings to take forward by Mr. A. Chandramouli to take this session forward, sir, and also set the theme for today's session. Over to you, Chandramouli, sir. Thanking all for joining for today's session.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Chandramouli, sir, you have to unmute the mic.
I did that. Am I audible?
Yes,
audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why is Prithvi saying I have to unmute the mic? Okay. Is it loud and clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay. At the outset, I would like to once again give a warm welcome to Mr. Binith Ashok. And also thank Web Solutions, which is a division of Wipro, for supporting this event and also getting us an excellent subject matter expert called Mr. Binith Ashok. And thanks to Corona and thanks to the working out of home, we are able to connect people from various parts of the country. As we are talking, Mr. Binith Ashok is now sitting in Kerala and sharing his experience with us. He is a promoter director of this company, which is a partnership of Web Solutions. Technovia, correct, Mr. Binith? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Technomics, Mr. Malik.
Technomics. I'm sorry. And he's going to share a rich experience on this. I will just share one slide to set the context. I'm neither an expert in low code nor in Industry 4.0. I don't know whether that slide is coming up. Oh God, it's gone.
We were able to see the slide earlier, Mr. Molly.
I know. Okay.
Chandramouli sir, can we present it?
No.
Rupa, you presented. Sir is waiting for it.
Okay. Okay, Rupa, go ahead. Some problem with my computer. Yeah.
Chandramouli, sir, you can see it?
Okay. I can see. I can see. Thank you, Rupa. That's a good presence of mind. Very good. Very good. Okay. That's a beautiful picture of Industry 4.0 with several technologies. Yeah. It's a very small print. I don't know whether you all can read the technologies, but for your benefit, I'll try to recall, yeah, the technology names which is mentioned there by Pandits, experts in Industry 4.0. The most important backbone of Industry 4.0, all of you are familiar, is industrial IoT, IIoT. IoT, to be very specific to the industrial requirements. You can also have societal requirements of IoT, as in the Ola car, Swiggy, Zomato, and several applications in retail market, digital marketing, etc. But from our point of view, we are talking about IoT for industrial applications, with a specific focus on manufacturing industry. And with that as backbone, cloud computing. The moment you say internet, automatically cloud comes in the picture. We are not talking about cloud 9, but we are talking about cloud computing. And I'm sure Mr. Binith Ashok will touch upon today how the cloud computing and the low code computing are interrelated to each other. If not in his session, he'll definitely touch upon during the explanatory session. And an automatic corollary of the cloud computing is a data analytics, advanced data analytics and basic data analytics. Am I right, Mr. Ashok?
Absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Molly.
Thank you. Data analytics is a basic data analytics, as I understand. Sometime I open my camera so that you can see my hand. The basic data analytics is all about descriptive data analytics. Matlab, what is going on in the factory or in the supply chain or in the way the product is serviced in the marketplace, or it is moving in logistics, in the value chain, through design to after sale service. Yeah. So I came on video because you can see my hand movement. From design to after sale service, I thought it was called horizontal integration, but Binith ji corrects me. He says that is called vertical integration. Fair enough. The expert says so, we will accept it. Because when several silos from design, manufacturing, including supply chain, marketing, logistics, and after sale service is called the product life cycle of any product, whether it is a car or automobile, or whether it is trucks, tractors, earth movers, machine tools, to which I belong, aircraft, whatever it is. There is a product life cycle. The cycle comes because now people talking about remanufacturing. Now I think the scrapping of automobile policy is coming up. So we have to scrap the automobile and remanufacture. I think in India we will never scrap anything. Finally, even the Ganesha for the Pillar Chaturthi or Ganesha festival, we put it in the ocean and we put it in the water. But all of them are floating towards Calcutta, and I will not be surprised if they are recirculated again for the next Ganesha. Right? The point I'm saying is, that is a joke actually. Even in Visarjan, we try to recirculate our products. So the descriptive data analytics, coming back to the point here, the subject of the day, is about describing what is going on in this product life cycle from design to after sales service. So several app developers today, already 54 people have joined, more people are joining. are all looking at how to create dashboards. See, dashboard creation has become the very good project for any young engineer coming in the IoT industry. I don't want to say IT industry. I want to say IoT industry. The young engineers, dashboard development, KPI, pehla measure karo. I totally agree with them. My manufacturing head, Mr. Prakash ji, says, if you want to improve something, first you must measure it. If you want to measure something, you have to record it. If you want to record something, you have to process the data to create information. So data, records lead to measurement, measurement leads to KPI, measurement lead to improvement. So my dear ladies and gentlemen, today who have joined, some of you may be in the manufacturing sector, pardon me for my understanding. So unless you measure something, you cannot improve it. So the entire gamut of Industry 4.0 is addressing this point about measurement. If you can measure things, you use low code, medium code, high code, I don't care. Of course, Mr. Ashok ji will say, object to me. He will say, we'll have to talk about low code only. I agree with him on the lighter side. But if you can't measure it and improve it, forget about any code. Even if there is no code also is okay. Below low code, there can be only one more category, no code, NO. That will come later on. Web Solutions is looking at many possibilities. Yeah, if I am doing with what is called my hand movement, gesture. Google has brought a concept called gesture. If I bring gesture or if I use Alexa, I don't have any code at all. Alexa, please play a song from Kishore Kumar. It will play a song from Kishore Kumar. There is no code at all. Low code. It's going to happen 10 years from now. Ashok ji, please watch out my word. Whatever I told 10 years back, it happened now. Right?
I'm sure about it, Mr. Mouli.
The data analytics, I'm simply indulging little humor today because we have many youngsters still joining. Then leads to advanced data analytics. Please remember, the describing what is going on is only basic data analytics. But why the problem happened? What is the reason my machine is not performing? What is the reason my automobile is not moving in the same direction in which it is supposed to move? What is the reason my productivity is not as per the standards? What is the reason my quality is not as per the standards? And what is the reason my supply chain is not behaving the way it is supposed to behave? And what is the reason my service, after sales service, is not done properly to the customer? All this, the reasoning, when I get into that, we get into diagnostic data analytics. I hope Mr. Ashok ji will throw some light on whether diagnostic data analytics also we can use low code. Then hats off to him. Hats off to him. He will explain later. Then comes the third level. You know, today Rupa said I must give an introductory talk. Not an introduction only, but introductory talk. So I'm just indulging in that. The third level of data analytics is if I know what is going on, if I know why it is going on, I can predict what can go on in the future. Will I get the masala dosa tomorrow from Swiggy? I may not get. Because today he didn't deliver on time. Why he didn't deliver on time? Motorcycle mein petrol nahi tha. So tomorrow also Swiggy will not deliver masala dosa on time. But Zomato may deliver my masala dosa on time. So predictive data analytics, that Swiggy will not deliver. But prescriptive data analytics, that is the fourth level, that Zomato will deliver the masala dosa. So I switch from loyalty from Swiggy to Zomato, from Ola to Uber, right? From one machine tool brand to another machine tool brand. Instead of Boeing, I start buying Airbus. I predict that Boeing will not succeed. I succeed, then Airbus I select. Or, I'm nothing against Boeing. I predict Airbus may not succeed, so I buy Boeing. I mean, don't worry. Both of them had their own problems. In this, the DC volt 12 volt battery did not work. In that, some turbine blade had a problem. Doesn't matter. So, the predicting data analytics is all about what you heard yesterday on machine learning algorithms, not logarithms, sorry, algorithms, ML algorithm. Binith ji told me that he is going to talk about ML also. Low code can be done even for ML. And then prescriptive data analytics, how you should change the decision. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you look at the silos of product life cycle from design to after sales service and do system integration, you see the points written here. One of the pillars is horizontal and vertical integration of processes. Vertical integration is about across entire organization, from product development to after sales service. Support, when he means support, he means after sales service. Horizontal integration means going beyond the organization. Go to the supply chain, go to the customer chain, dealers, stockists, end users, so on and so forth. Customer, the chain of customers. Yeah. If you cover both the backward integration and the forward integration, you get horizontal integration. And the third, the very, very important point is, today, unless you break the silos of the functions on the one hand or organizations on the other hand, I would like to add, Mr. Ashok, one more. Levels on the other hand. Levels. Shop floor to top floor. That is another meaning of vertical integration. From the devices where the IoT is incorporated to the dashboard sitting in the MD's room. Our startup companies are designing a lot of apps. There are several architectures, you know better. And those architectural levels have to be vertically integrated in a beautiful manner in the pyramid of IoT. Edge devices, second level. Communication protocols, third level. And so on and so forth, leading up to the analytical level of dashboards. The cloud is the fourth level, etc. Now there is one more word called fog. Fog is a cloud which is closer to the machine, which is closer to the device, which is closer to the mobile phone. The fog is a cloud which is closer to the device, where analytics are happening at the edge devices. Calculations are happening in the embedded devices. That means it's a hierarchical approach of vertical integration. So there are many, many meanings of what these terminologies. We can interpret the way we want, not a problem. And above all, if manufacturers have to customize their applications, that is what I understood from Mr. Ashok himself. If you want to customize the applications with end-to-end automation, then better to make it so simple so that anybody can do a program at the customer level without waiting for, sorry to say, Wipro, IT department, Infosys, IT department, right? TCS, IT department, which had some problem with income tax or something, Infosys. So, IT departments are like big elephants. They are very good. They make very robust package which cannot be changed for 4 more years. But if you have to make a nimble change, if you have to make a very small change for the customer on the fly, that 4 o'clock he had a problem, you have to make a software improvement at 4:30. I'm just guessing. Maybe I'm preempting the lecture of Mr. Ashok. But 56 people have joined. Therefore, the remaining circles in this IoT, cloud computing, data analytics, system integration. I don't want to talk about the remaining. That's a big workshop by itself. Yeah, we will do it later on. In every one of the Industry 4.0 application, it is suffice to say, you have to customize on the go. We have to customize the application very fast, very flexible. And that is today the program by Mr. Binith Ashok. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Wipro. Thank you, Web Solution, for organizing this brilliant program. I am zero on low code. I'm going to listen to you and learn today something. Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. Ashok. You all can put your questions in the text box. We will take it up at, now it is 3:30. We will take it up at 4:30. And we close the session at 5. Go ahead, Mr. Binith.
I honestly couldn't have hoped for a better intro. Mr. Molly, thanks a lot for the intro and your comments, thoughts on 4.0 pillars and vertical horizontal integrations. A lot of those points that you mentioned, dashboards, brilliant. You always claim that you are not an expert. I deeply disagree there, but
Honestly,
thanks a lot. Once again, Mr. Molly, for the intro, and Prithvi, thanks for the background. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Binith Ashok. I hope all of you are able to hear me loud and clear. At the outset, let me take a moment to thank BCIC for arranging this event, inviting us for the webinar and giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts with all of you. Let me also thank each and every one of you for taking time from your busy schedules, deciding to spend the time with us on this webinar. Now it's a Friday afternoon. We're all stepping into a weekend after possibly what's been a very busy, stressful week. However, let me take the privilege of seeking your devoted attention for the next 60 to 80 minutes into what's actually being seen as a revolution in the manufacturing sector, in the fourth industry revolution, as Mr. Molly was mentioning, where low-code technology is also playing a very significant role, right? So that's probably the area we're going to kind of deep dive today. What is low-code doing? So with that, let me just share my screen and we will go through this, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I am sharing my screen. Hope you are all able to see the screen. So enabling manufacturing in the digital era with help of low code, with some cushion from low code. How is it happening is basically what we are going to be speaking about today. As we get into the discussion, this is what is lined up in front of us, right? So many of you might be new to this whole terminology called low code platform, LCDP, right? Low code development platforms. So what exactly is a low code platform, how it came into existence, and what specifically is the role that plays in 4.0 is something that we are going to kind of look at from a background perspective. Then we will go into the essential components of a low-code platform. What is a low-code platform carrying with us? We could take a state-of-the-art low-code platform and then do a deep dive and see the specific components that form a low-code platform. Finally, I mean, last but not in any ways the least, we can give a walkthrough, a demo of a low-code platform. And Mr. Molly was mentioning, flexibility, the capability to customize at will. There's a sudden request coming at 4 o'clock. What can you do by 4:30? How is it made possible in the digital world? Where he was also mentioning that the TCSs and the Wipros and some of the Infosys of the world might have some sad faces around it, because IT is in some ways getting pushed back. So how is all of this going to come together in this entire spectrum of low code is probably what we're going to look at today. Right. So with your permission, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started on what is a low-code platform. Before we go into the depth of this, let's just take a dream versus reality kind of a scenario. Okay, it's a small cartoon strip. Maybe many of you have seen this already. I'm sure most of you might have actually experienced this issue also in your life, right? There is something that the customer needs. There is a swing that the customer wants. Let's say for his kids to play in the park, and he wants it on the tree there, as you can see in the image. That is how he explains it to the IT team. This is a swing I want to have on the park for my kids to play, right? Now there is a project lead or the manager or the business analyst who is going to be leading this. This is how he's understanding it. And this is how he explains to the tech team that the customer is needing this. Now you have the so-called solution architect or the technical architect coming into the picture. He's saying, I want even walking sticks for the trees. Okay, this is how it is going to be designed. So, kids are going to leverage maximum value out of it. Finally, you have the programmers who come and then do it. And this is how, it ends up as an IT solution. But you have your sales guys, you have your business consultant who is describing, this is what is being made. my God, there's so much of plush cushion that your kids are actually going to have the time of their life, on this particular product. Tomorrow you might have a small little issue. You want to go back and check the document and see how you can resolve it. You search for document. This is what you find. There's no tree even, right? That's the kind of documentation that you have on the whole thing. And finally, your operations team in the modern day world, you have the DevOps concept, right? The operations team come in after months and months, in certain cases, years of effort. They install the final solution to you. This is what finally materializes, for the customer. The invoice reaches. It is as if an entire theme park was built over there, right? When you look at the money that's being asked to pay. And in terms of support, after sales, this is how it is. I mean, some stub of the tree was there. That's the best we can support, right? This is a typical issue. We see there's one more catch here. What did the customer really want? The customer really wanted something totally different. The customer wanted a tire swing, but because he was explaining it, okay, to the IT team in a certain fashion. So this is typically what you refer to as Chinese whispers, right? I don't know if you've heard about that game where you keep make a set of kids stand on a line, and the first kid has to whisper a message to the ears of the second kid. The second kid will do the same to the third, and the third will do to the fourth. Finally, when this message reaches the last kid in the line, the entire message is lost. It's distorted. Because it's a known phenomenon that as message passes through multiple layers, it undergoes a loss, it undergoes a change. So how beautiful, how great it would have been if the customer himself was enabled or he was empowered to actually get maybe this, or at least a version of this upfront without going through so many layers. That is the whole motivation. That is the whole inspiration, idea, thought process behind the no-code/low code dream or methodology as such. Mr. Mouli did touch upon no code. Absolutely. That is so very important. We'll certainly come to those.
Oh, I never knew that term exists.
There is the world of no code, low code, and pro code. No code is where there's absolutely no coding, zero coding. Low code is where there's a little bit more coding, and pro code is extensive. We'll come into that. You have hit it on the bullseye.
I didn't realize. Thank you.
Okay, so that said, going into low code, the what and the why. What is low code and why low code? Before let's look at it in the reverse fashion, right? I'll take the why part first, and then we'll go into the what. So, what are the experts or the industry analysts speaking about low code? Forbes says that it is the most disruptive trend of 2021, no code/low code. Gartner says that in the next 2 to 3 years, by 2024, 75% of large organizations globally are going to use at least 4 different low code platforms. That is the kind of aggression with which organizations are adopting low code. And that reflects here at Civil, right? I mean, low code as a technology is growing at a massive rate of, compounded annual growth rate of 45.2%. It was 5.6 billion in terms of total cumulative revenue in 2018, whereas it's predicted to attain a 52.3 in 2024. Now, there's an interesting stat that IDC also puts in. IDC says that in this 5-year period, right, 2018 to 23, more than 500 million applications are going to be created globally. Now, that is more than the last 40 years put together. So this gives a sense of the kind of aggression that the market is seeing in terms of need of business applications, right? So that connects us to the why piece. Why low code? Why low code? Because enterprises are not just able to afford a from scratch IT application development anymore in many cases, where it's going to take many months and months of IT development. By the time after 12 months, 14 months, 18 months, the final solution becomes a reality, the whole requirement itself might have gone. That is a kind of disruption. That is a kind of chaos. That is a kind of dynamic behavior that the market is going through in the pandemic, post-pandemic era that we are in. So essentially, this has driven the need where business applications have to be developed faster in a very, very rapid fashion, where you do not have to write code. Even if you have to write code, it has to be low code, which means very, very low or very, very minimal code. In a few hours of coding, I need to actually have the entire application up and running for me. That is what the industry is demanding. So basically what has actually come here is it's given birth to this whole concept called low code platform. Imagine that you are entering a supermarket and you go into each of its aisles and you're saying, you're picking up a packet of bread from the left side shelf, you're going and picking up veggies from another shelf, you're going and picking up consumables from another shelf. So it's as if you have an entire packet, a bouquet of functionalities that this platform is giving you. You're going and making your choices. I want this screen. I want this sidebar menu. I want this kind of a dashboard. I want this kind of a report. Absolutely no coding. You are entering the supermarket of low code technology where you just go and grab things, and then you kind of consolidate, or the technology word is configure. You configure them together, connect them together, and then press a button on the screen saying create the application is ready. Okay, this is the whole idea or the whole concept that low code is bringing into the table. As we go through the demo, as we go through the rest of the presentation, I hope it will share a lot more light to many of you. Now, how does it differ from traditional programming? In case some of you from the IT background, you'll certainly be able to relate to it. Where in your traditional programming, it's so many layers, right? The same set of layers you're speaking about in the earlier cartoon, where there's a business team or the customer who's preparing your BRD, your business requirements document, giving it to the technology team. There's a technical analyst who's converting it into requirements that are understandable for the tech team. Then the architect comes in, he draws the high level design, the low level architecture. Your DB guys comes in, he prepares the database schema, the table structures, columns. Your backend team comes in, defines objects, classes, functions, business logic. Your front end team comes in, says, this is how the screens should be. This is a color combination and theme and the menu layout, drop downs. This is how it should look. You integrate all of those together, connect to some systems if it's required. Code reviews, unit testing of the code, QA testing, functional testing, integration testing, user acceptance testing, all of these layers before you can build the final application and deploy it for a customer's use. Whereas in the case of low code, no. You strike out many of those boxes. As soon as you get the business requirements from your customer, directly it goes into the phase called not database coding or database query executions. It is configuration. Again, we are hitting that term. Configuration of databases, configuration of process flows, because it's a business process you're automating, right? You might have a process where somebody is submitting a transaction, it goes to another system, comes in and finally comes to a state of completion. So configuring the business flow, deciding how your screens should be. What is my screen going to be looking like, and then a couple of steps around connecting to third-party systems, extremely important. As Mr. Molly was saying, vertical and horizontal integrations, where, his theory is absolutely correct. The production cycle forming the vertical integration, and after, it goes into the supply chain and enters the realm of customer space or customers and partners and vendors and subcontractors, contractors. That's where it goes into the scale of horizontal integrations, horizontal, automations. And then with some basic functional testing, you go live. So there is unbeatable speed that's coming here. Typically 8x to 10x is what analysts say, where low code platforms for an application that is low to moderate complex in nature, it is almost 8 to 10 times faster if you get those enabled on a low code platform when you compare it with getting that coded from scratch, right? So that is a little bit around low code. What is low code? Why low code? What's the value add it brings in? Now, what is it doing in 4.0, Industry 4.0? Speaking so much about fourth industry revolution, because we want to speak about what's specifically the role of low code. In fact, it did have a role in even 3.0, Industry 3.0. I'll quickly touch upon, some of the elements or the evolution of, the industry eras specifically, right? We'll quickly go through this because it's important to understand the evolution. It all started back in the 18th century where machines were introduced, the mechanical production machines, which are all powered by the steam engines, where suddenly with steam engines coming in, organizations realized that they are able to serve a larger customer base. From small little one room kind of businesses, suddenly we saw organizations which had hierarchies, it had workers, owners, managers, different set of employees who are addressing three things. You are addressing quality, they are addressing efficiency. Most importantly, they are able to address scale, they are able to address a larger customer base through steam engines getting introduced into the manufacturing world. Now 2.0, the next era, started in the early 20th century. That's when steam got replaced with electricity. Electrical energy came in. What is a big plus? The advantage is so much more efficient, right? Both in terms of operations, as well as maintenance, in terms of the effort required, cost required, all of that, it was, so much more efficient. And this also saw the huge revolution in terms of assembly lines coming into picture. So assembly line based manufacturing became a standard practice. We even saw so many, theories or concepts around industry culture management programs, things like JIT, just in time or lean methodology or division of labor. All of these came in the 2.0 era. Now then came 3.0, which was in the last decade of the 20th century, where you had huge advancements in the field of electronics. That's where the transistors and the ICs came into existence. So you had machines that had the muscle of electronics embedded in it. And it was kind of pushing the human outside. It is saying, I am able to do a lot of things myself. Human intervention was brought to a minimum. Now, what that also resulted is, because these hardware components wanted to operate, there were even software solutions that are required to enable these hardware components. So IT also saw a certain amount of boom where you actually saw ERPs entering, manufacturing segment. You saw HRMS, you saw CRMs, customer relations. You saw specific, custom supply chain solutions coming into the picture in 3.0. So all these software solutions started coming in 3.0. Unfortunately, obviously it's a beginning. What happened is, Mr. Mouli was specifically pointing to it in his intro, right? It created silos, data silos. ERP was coming in, all the production manufacturing related data was sitting in the, ERP segment there. All my staffing related information, recruitment, my HR programs, my reward programs, my employee performance management, all of that was sitting specifically inside HRMS. I had a totally different bucket called the CRM, which is all about my customer inquiries. Whereas a totally different bucket for maybe my issue management, incident management, or my production support management is all the feedback that I was getting after sales. Now, all of this, if at all, we could have connected these together so that maybe from this, from the feedback system, you are able to fine tune sales and production, end-to-end visibility, end-to-end automation. Even with hardware coming in, the machines getting converted to smart machines through IIoT, industrial, IoT. That is basically the boom that happened in 4.0. Because in 4.0, in legit terms, it's believed to have started in 2011, where there's so much of boom in internet and telecommunication that exchange of information became so much more seamless. Machines are able to send information. Think about a Tesla, where you have a car that's running, there are all these sensors that are grabbing all kinds of information from your surroundings. It is converting that, it is giving that to a central engine. The central engine is rapidly, immediately processing data at that speed so that you get autonomous cars. It's able to, kind of keep the human intervention to an all-time low and get functions performed in an autonomous fashion. So you had M2M, machine to machine communication that's literally happening in 4.0, and end-to-end automation in terms of enabling smart factories. Now, where is low code coming in this whole scheme of things? Well, when you speak about IT solutions, it did come in 3.0. You had individual processes getting automated through ERPs and the human resource management systems, all of that we just spoke about. But what has become in 4.0 is integration, vertical, horizontal automation, where these applications are made to the data inside these applications are breaking barriers. They are jumping out and they are combining together to generate, from data, as Mr. Molly was saying, to records, and converting that to information, which finally becomes insights that can deliver decisions or help in making decisions for management. That is how it started coming together in terms of connecting all of these, and that is where low code application plays a huge role in terms of having large number of custom applications set out rapidly so that it connects an entire chain of events and helps management, right from the bottom layer all the way to the MD's office, to borrow his words, in terms of dashboards, giving visibility around what's happening, what is going bad, where is it that we need an improvement. That is basically what low code is adding a value in terms of 4.0 pillars, the foundational structures of fourth industry revolution. Let's take a small little example, a use case. It's not a very exhaustive one, but okay, I'll skip this slide because Mr. Molly gave a wonderful intro on this, so I'm just going to skip this out. But a typical example, right? What really happens in the case of some of these processes that we do on our factory shop. Yesterday, I think there was a session on asset maintenance. I'm not sure the details around it. Something similar here, right? Fixed asset transfer. Now, FA transfer is typically a big pain in many factories, in many organizations, because see, even though obviously as companies, we are all going to have fixed assets, and your ERP, your SAP ECCs or your HANAs, or all of these guys, they're going to give you a FA register. They will give you a fixed asset register or an inventory, which is going to hold all the inventory of your assets. It's going to say that your company is having so many systems, lathe machines, or 20 different laptops, and serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laptop belongs to this person who's in this location. He is the custodian. So that entire inventory is maintained here. And ERP is absolutely great for managing the financial accounting related aspects, like your depreciation, calculation around it, all of that. But unfortunately, what happens is there are a lot of activities that happen in terms of workflows around it. When I say workflows around it, for business reasons, factories have to shift or move or transfer assets from one to another for various reasons. It could be 20 laptops that are in Bhubaneswar today getting shipped to Lucknow for a team of new engineers who are joining there, or maybe it is a big a mold that you are moving to a vendor's location, not even your own place, a vendor's location, because part of the work you're outsourcing to him, and the vendor is going to use that mold for his manufacturing piece that he's going to do at his side. So for all of these, the FA transfer process that is happening was very, very manual. The problem with that is there is no visibility, there's no transparency, nobody has any clue. If you look at the ERP is going to say that the mold is sitting inside the shelf in your Lucknow factory. In reality, maybe it is being shipped by the DTDC team to the vendor's location. It might get lost, it might get broken. Who handled it last? What happened to it? Nobody knows. Right? Now think about a solution like this, where you have all the input inventory, obviously that's sitting in the ERP. Now there is an application that is very, very rapidly enabled in the matter of few days, where you have provided the capability for senders, that is people in individual, let's say factory A, he is raising a request for an asset transfer. That has to be approved by all relevant stakeholders, whether it needs to be transferred to factory B or not. Once these approvals are procured, the transaction leaves the perimeters of your organization. It jumps into the engineering or the support team who are taking care. Let's say Philips machine. Philips guys have to come in. They need to disassemble the machinery. Now you need to ship it. That's where again it goes outside the perimeters of your organization. It's another party. You know, it's your logistic guy. It might be your FedEx or your UPS or your professional or your DTDC, whoever it is, who ships it from your logistics department all the way to the recipient team. Now the receiver has received it. He confirms that I got it. He again, you know, the engineer at his location is called for. They come in and assembles the machine. The QA team is triggered. The QA team comes in, inspects it, certifies that the asset is absolutely ready for use. Then it goes to the admin guy, and the admin guy is saying, this is the new tag ID. This is the new serial number of my machine. And from today, it is going to be in this location. This person is going to be the custodian for this machine, and all the depreciation and its value has to be tagged against the cost center of this new location. So this whole thing will typically get handled over emails or phone calls if you do not have a custom application in between that's integrating, tying all these entities right from your internal softwares to your external service vendors, to the logistics team, to QA admin, all of these guys. This is where, just a small little example where you get end-to-end visibility. You want to go in and see in 2013, when I was moving 55 laptops from Cochin to Bangalore, who handled it, what happened, and then who was shipping it, was there any comment, what is the kind of, end of the day, it all boils down to analytics, right? You will need to see, is the shipping guy inefficient? Is he taking a lot of time to ship? What is the average time that DTDC is consuming? Mr. Molly spoke about failures from Swiggy. So you might have to change loyalty and go to Zomato instead. Similarly, do I need to move from DTDC to somebody else because I'm unhappy with the kind of delays that he is enforcing on my consignment? So all of this information has to, end of the day, eventually come and sit in a bunch of conclusive dashboards that are going to be diagnostic in nature. It should tell you even what the problem is. And then it becomes, the front view, where it's even able to forecast and say that, okay, so this is where, you could have some potential gains, which is again into the future. But this is where, these are potential areas where low code comes in, where individual silos of information, ERP holding his data, logistic holding his data, engineering holding his data, all of those are broken. You kind of establish the path seamlessly and get complete visibility around each and every transfer of asset that's happening across your various organizations or factories that you have in the country or abroad, right? Just a small little example. Now, I'll wind up around, this around what is low code, why low code, what is low code's value in Industry 4.0. Let us come into some of the key modules in WeP DMS, right? We're going to take a state-of-the-art low-code platform, and we are going to do some anatomy on top of it. What is it that low-code platforms have or should have? Now, as organizations embark on their digital journey for aligning into 4.0 pillars, some of the key components that they're going to be needing. Number one, we have not touched this, but this is very, very important: documents. Right? Because there's so many documents that all of these processes are going to create. In your previous fixed asset transfer, maybe you might need to give a order to the servicing team or the DTDC guy. There's an invoice that is going to come to you. There is a request form that probably you need to fill up and submit. So all of these are individual documents. How are they being handled? Are they scattered all over your office? Do you have shelves and huge almaras that are being filled up with all these documents tagged inside? Or do you have a paperless office where you have a central, secure, scalable document repository that's managing all these documents beautifully with access rights, with version management, all of those? So that's one thing that also comes into play in terms of functional modules. Some of these might be a little techno-functional. In case you're not able to digest this, don't worry. We'll certainly go into the details subsequently in the demo, and you'll be able to relate to it, right? Then the second key module that comes into picture is called BPM, Business Process Management, where you have, the supermarket example, where you just go in and then grab all the components and then say, this is what I need to have on my application, a BPM module. Then you would need low code. Now, when I say low code, typically, low to medium complexity applications could very well be achieved without coding, no coding. But whatever said and done, complexities would still require some amount of coding, not thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code like what we had in the past, but at least a fair amount of, low level scripting, as we would say, very basic set of code, which is, even able to enable some very niche custom functionalities that people are going to look in the solution, right? Last but not the least, BI. When I say BI, analytics, visualization of data, data exploration that give you insights around all the transactions that are going into the system. Last 1 year, 500 FA transfer requests have gone into my system, fixed asset transfers. Now, what does this mean? Where am I getting hit? How can I improve? So there should be some mechanism that's going to give you all that information, right? These are some of the critical modules that you need as you start your digitization journey. And that is precisely what WeP DMS is, right? We are a low-code platform. We are powered with all of these modules. We have a generic integration layer, very, very important for 4.0 alignment, where you can seamlessly speak with anybody. You can speak with various systems, exchange data, artificial intelligence, machine learning services, how you can leverage ML services to, have some of these, support required in terms of very, very fast application development, a lot more add-ons that come in. So this is what a low-code platform like a WeP DMS does, right? Rapidly transform ideas into high-impact business application. If you have an idea, don't worry about explaining it to multiple layers and finally getting the risk of having something else delivered to you. No. If you have an idea, go ahead, do it yourself. Get that converted to an application. That is what a low-code platform does. Now, these are the functional components that come in there. In the core, you have your workflow layer, okay? Your process flow designer. This is a little technical. Don't worry if you're not able to kind of make a lot of out of it. But just to set the context for a few of you in the call, workflow automation layer and few of these other layers, we have something called the application studio. This is where all the magic happens, right? This is where you go inside the studio and make all these applications a reality. Maybe I'm just going to give 3 applications today to my finance team. One for processing invoice, another for processing budget, another for expense processing. Maybe my quality team requires audit management, my legal requires contract management, my after sales support requires customer incident management. So depending on the requirement, you just go and create the application that you need and then start using it. That's the whole magical arena around it. You do have the power of integrations where you might want to integrate to have end-to-end automation achieved in 4.0 with numerous components. It could be other software components like SAP or your Salesforce or any of the software ERPs or the CRMs of the world. It could be hardware devices where you might have something like, let's say, Thermo Fisher machine, PrintMate, SlideMate. You do something on the software, your hardware machine, the driver is integrated, so it immediately does something on the machine. You might need to have compound level analytics. When I say compound level analytics, each of these applications are going to create satellite dashboards, individual dashboards that are relevant to that application. You might need to combine all of that in the cloud and then say on the cloud, I want to have all of these generating value or dashboards or insights for me for end-to-end visibility, for which you might need some big data analytic platforms, IoT services, machine learning services, integrations with even those to even speak with systems, speak with hardware devices. All of those seamlessly need to be enabled through an integration layer, and you have your analytics also spreading across. So these are the various components that largely come in the bigger landscape when you look at it. Don't worry if you're not able to connect to maybe all of these, but when I show a practical example, it's probably going to make a lot more sense, right? So we are at 4 o'clock, probably done, half an hour into the meeting. I will wind up the slides here. Now let's go to the low-code platform itself and then take a look at practically how this is done. Okay. In the next 15 to 20 minutes, 15 minutes maybe, we will develop an application, okay, on the platform and then see how it's deployed for organizations. So I'm going to go into some of these examples. So I can even show you some examples, right? This is that fixed asset transfer application that I was speaking about. You can see that I'm going here, I'm through a login page, I'm able to enter the application, and there are various functionalities here, right? I mean, I can go to the fixed asset transfer. I can say I want to raise a new request for a transfer, and this is the sending location. This is where it's going to be transferred from. These are the asset details, the asset code. Everything gets populated from ERP automatically. If I say the plant code is 2003 from the ERP, because we have an integration, the plant name get automatically populated. So all of these are connected together. You can submit the transaction. Once you submit the transaction, it goes for internal approvals. I can pick any transaction. I can see, what are the details of the transaction, who, requested for that, all the documents embedded to it, what happened to it. Somebody initiated the transaction, then it went for DOA approval. These guys made these comments on it. It was assigned on such and such date, completed on such and such date. Now it is with the CBS FA team. It was assigned on 8th of June. It is due on 9th of June. See the kind of delay they are making on it. More than a month and it's still not being addressed, right? So all this kind of information at a very granular level goes into the application. So you are having an application where you can submit transactions. That transaction goes through various levels of approvals. I can go inside this. I can approve this, mark it as complete by filling fields that are relevant for me, saying attaching invoices, all of those relevant to me. I can get detailed reports out of it that shows status of each and every transaction, where it is, filter based on those reports to pick up select ones I'm trying to locate, sort based on the various reporting components, etc. Or maybe you can see the kind of look and feel, right? All of these are configurable. You can change the color, themes, the images, the UI elements, all of those, the way you want it's totally different. This is an after sales support issue where if I want to create a customer ticketing system, you might even want scenarios like dashboards where you might want to have custom charts and graphs of different types that gives you a view of all different transactions that have gone into the system. User management functions, each of these roles, what are they permitted to do? Who are the users? What's the kind of access they have? All of these are enabled on the platform. So basically, you're speaking about end applications that are able to accept transactions. Okay, be it a fixed asset transfer, be it audit, be it incident management, be it invoice, depending on the use case, it's accepting transaction. Transaction goes through a process flow from one person to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, maybe interacting with even external systems and machines outside, finally coming to a state of completion. And you want to have all kinds of dashboards, graphs, charts drawn around it to see what's the value you're deriving out of it. Those kind of applications, how quickly can you create on a low-code platform? Let's look at it, right? So I'm going to go into the low-code platform core menu now. I'm going to go into the low-code platform. I'm going to enter here and we're going to develop an application now. Okay. So this is the application studio. This is where you configure, assemble an application, not program, configure, assemble an application. How does it happen? So let's say I'm going to, create a new app, but even before that, there are a few differentiators here. I can click on this template and download a template. Okay. This template is nothing but an Excel sheet like this. It has so many forms. Once I document whatever I need upfront on this Excel sheet, it is even easier for me to develop it. If I just put in plain English what I need, the biggest advantage is I can just give this data directly into the studio here and he is going to create the application for me. Let's take an example and look at it. For example, I'm just going to say, let's say webinar invoice management. Okay, I'm just going to create a invoice management application right now in our webinar today. It's for the finance team. If I'm going to say and it's asking me to fill a bunch of these details, right? The moment I'm done with all of these tabs very quickly, I can just publish this application to the store, which means that it is like going, application is going from here to the store as in, like your Google Play Store or your Apple App Store kind of a thing. From where it can just be directly installed. Let's do that right now. So the first thing that I need to supply in this is roles, right? Who are the people who are going to be participating in this application? So I'm speaking about an invoice management application. So I'm going to say that there is a finance user who's going to submit an invoice. Low value invoices will go to a manager. High value invoices will go to a director for approvals. Let's take a very base case as an example, not a very complex one, so everybody is able to relate to it. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this entire data, Control C. I just copied it. I'll come to my designer, take it from an Excel is what I say. I paste it. As soon as I do a Control V, see, you can see that it is getting parsed. It's asking, are these the 3 roles you want to add? I'll say yes, done. All of those added. You are done. You can go to the next tab. You can of course add each of these manually, but with the Excel sheet, so much more faster. Now you go to the data tab. In the data tab, you're going to say, how do you want the data to be organized in my database? So I'm going to say, I want a table that's going to have customer name, address, invoice date, invoice amount. All these fields are the fields I want to have on my application. Again, copy this, Control C, come here, do a paste. All of those got identified, and you can give a name to the table. I'm just going to say, let's say webinar, table 099, some name I'm just going to give to this. It'll even ask you whether you want to create the form data. I'll say yes, and I'll say create. It immediately creates the table. Okay, there is no querying, no technical. The best thing is it will automatically create all the queries. So I just can come to the functions here, and I can see that the system has automatically created all the select queries. In case you are a tech guy, you'll understand that these are all the queries that are needed to pull out data from the table. The customer name, customer address, invoice date, invoice amount, everything that we mentioned, the queries get auto-created. Done. Now you go to forms. Form is nothing but the request that the user is submitting. So I can, the first form got auto-created from my database. So I'm just coming here and saying that, okay, from the database, I want this form, customer name, address, preferred customer, invoice number, all of that. And you can design the form for your user. Maybe break it into tabs or sections. Maybe I can say that for the user, maybe the customer details should come up first. So I'm going to say customer name, customer address should come side by side. Maybe preferred customer also should come like this. Then there should be another section, which is for maybe, invoice details. And I, capture all those invoice related, invoice number, invoice date, amount, all those fields that I want. Here I can just drag and drop and then create the form the way I wanted. You can even preview this here. Just preview this here to see how it's going to finally render for the user, right? But you can just create the form in this fashion, and then just save it. Your form is ready. Then you go into your process flow. So in your process flow, you are just going to say what should happen the moment an invoice is submitted. So I'm just going to say, a webinar flow is what I'm going to create. And what should be the process flow? Again, I can just drag and drop all those components here. Remember our example with the supermarket. So I'm just going to say, as and when a process starts up, just go. And the first step here is maybe a user task. It is my manager review or approval. Okay, once he's approved it, then it should go to the next person, like that. You can go ahead and create the flow you want. Or what you can also do is, in case you've already documented the flow in your Excel requirements document, you can take a picture of that. I'm just taking a print screen, a picture of that. One of the areas where our machine learning algorithm comes into picture, I can copy the, paste the picture here. I just pasted it here, and I'm just going to highlight here and say, from here, I want the process flow to be taken. I'll say create the flow. It'll just take a couple of seconds. It's just analyzing. The ML algorithm is analyzing that entire picture. It just created. Maybe one arrow got missing because of lack of clarity. but it will go ahead and create that entire process flow diagram for you. So this is how you can go ahead and leverage the template that we are speaking about and get those. So just for our example, I'm just going to say that I want a process where somebody is going to start it and then it goes for let's say a manager approval to somebody, and then it's going to end. Okay, let's just put it for sake of clarity, easiness. And I will just say that when somebody has to start the process, this is the form that should come for him, and for manager approval also is the form that you want to display to the manager. So with those basic details, you go ahead and save the form. Form is nothing, as we just mentioned, the page where the data entry is made, transaction entry is made. Now you go and select what all you want on the screen. On your application screen, what all do you want? See, you might remember that in my screen here, I had 2-3 elements. I had a sidebar menu. There are multiple menu items. When I click on a menu item, a landing page comes. When I click on one of the transaction of that landing page, a details page comes showing all the details of the transaction. You can provide all that here. I'll say I want a details page called invoice, webinar invoice details page. That's what I'm going to be calling it, and it needs to have all these details that we had from our database. So maybe not all of these, but all these other detail I want on my details page. I even want to show the documents tab, the activity history tab, all of that, and then I will save this. Then I will go to the list and then say on the landing page, I want to have another landing page. So you can see that I'm literally building up my UI screens. What all do I want on each of my applications page without any programming, without any coding. I'm just saying that of all the fields in the database, with all these fields, I want so many of these on my landing page, so many in my details page. Maybe I want a button to submit the invoices. So I'm just going to add a button called submit invoice, and the form should come up based on that. So I just created a landing page, and then I created, I'm going to create the menu, that sidebar menu here. What all do you want in the menu? Maybe I want a menu called dashboard. I want a menu called invoices. When I click on that, all those invoice details should come. So when I click on it, it should show a landing page, the customer name, address, all of this, which I just now designed. So like this, you can go ahead and configure without any programming each and every elements you want on the screen. Then you go into your permissions. You can say your director, manager, user, what are the kind of permissions you want to give to each of these people. Maybe my user should be only able to view the data and submit the data. My director should have maybe full admin access. So all these permissions for each of the users, you can go ahead and configure those permissions on your screen here. And then you go into your analytics, dashboards. How quickly can you define dashboards here? So, you go into your dashboard engine and you will say of all the invoice details I have on my invoice table, show me, dashboard, which is basically, all the invoices first based on, let's say, the country. Okay. Then based on, let's say, the financial year. Then based on, let's say, the financial month. Then based on, let's say, the name of the customer. So all the fields I have on my dashboard, I can just, on my database, I can drag and drop and I can say, this is the dashboard I want to create. And once I've decided the fields on which I want to pivot and have my dashboard, a drillable dashboard created, I can just go ahead and say, what's the kind of dashboard I need? I'll say I need, let's say, a column itself, so many different types, or a bar, or a line, area, pie, donut, so many different formats to choose from. If I say I want a clustered column, see, based on the country, I'll get the first chart, based on the financial year, then the month, then the name of the customer. So in this way, you get your dashboards very quickly created, and those dashboards you bring here. Every dashboard you create on the engine will have a dashboard ID. You will bring that dashboard ID here and configure your dashboard, not program or code, configure your dashboards and reports in this fashion. Then you go ahead and say, do you want to connect to a third-party system? I will come to this specifically. But before that, templates. In some cases, you might even have to create documents from this. Maybe the entire invoice has to be created or a contract has to be created. You can define a template and the document be created in that format. Or you might have, let's say, the logo. What's the logo you want to give for this? I'll just go ahead and give the logo of the customer, in the final application that I want to give. I can set the logo, I can set the login image, all of those I do. But this is the basic application structure we just now created, where I'm saying that I need an invoice management application. We took around 17 or 15 minutes roughly to do this application. I'll just save this and I'll say publish to the store. Okay, I'm going to push this application to the store. So it is just going to do all that activity in the back that we just asked it to do all that, DB configuration files and things like that. It is doing those settings in the back. The publishing is complete, which means that now the application is available in the store. Now I come outside, and if I go into the store, you will see that the webinar invoice management application has come up here. It's ready to be installed. It's ready for your business team to use. So I'm just going to say install this application. So now if I just give the system around 20 seconds, it is going to create the final application that my finance team users can go ahead and use in their daily life. Done. Over. Application is ready. Now if I just come out, if I come to the tab called apps here, all the applications that I've designed in my platform, it'll come here, and there is something here. See, webinar invoice management. If I click on this, I will immediately go inside that app. So I can just say, all this image we had given as default, but if I just log into the application now, the webinar invoice management application, it will take me inside to the landing page where I can go ahead. So, okay, I think there is some maybe parameter that is missed out when we went ahead and did that configuration very quickly. But typically that's what happens. You can just go ahead into the application. You can install it, push it to the store, install it, and the app becomes a reality. So the BCIC invoice management, something that I had like this, you can just publish it and then install it in the same way. The app is ready for your use. Now, is this really Industry 4.0? The answer is a no, because what you have just now done is Industry 3.0, where you got a solution. You got a IT solution set up for something that you have probably you were manually doing till this point of time. You just created an IT solution for that. It becomes a 4.0 or it aligns to a 4.0 pillar when you integrate it, break data silos, and start giving end-to-end visibility. And that is where you have the concept of connectors. For example, I'm just going to go into our systems admin page here and show you how quickly you can connect to third-party systems for the horizontal and vertical integrations that Mr. Molly was also referring to earlier, right? See, I just logged into the system as a systems admin, and I have a section here called connectors. So I can just come here and create my own connectors. This is a little technical, ladies and gentlemen. So in case you're not able to make complete sense of it, don't worry. It's just that I can come here and easily, for example, I've created a connector to a system called DocuSign, connector to SAP, or connector to UiPath. I can just go ahead and add a connector here. So the only thing I say here is all the fields in which this is where a low-level scripting API structure, everything comes in, where you can just select, UiPath or SAP is expecting input in this format. It is expecting parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3. So when I want to push the invoice and post it in UiPath or in SAP, I want to provide values to all these parameters. This is what I'm literally telling the system. Okay. So what we will do is, once you define a connector like this, you will just go ahead, get into, I'm just going into the system in a different fashion, the same workflow designer. I'm just going into where you had the workflow, right? Finance manager reviewing it, approving it, doing all these kind of activities. And I can connect to a system. I can draw an external connector here. And I can say only after this connector end the process. And what's the connector doing? Which connector, to whom do you want to speak? All those configured connectors come up. Do you want to speak to UiPath, or do you want to speak to a PDF engine? Do you want to speak to SAP or DocuSign? You can pick up the connector. And the moment I say UiPath, it will ask me for all those parameters whom we have configured there. Param 1, I'll say pass invoice number. Param 2, customer name. Parameter 3 was address. So all those fields in my application that I want to pass to the third-party system as I'm integrating with it, seamlessly you can come here, get that integrations enabled so that your systems start exchanging information, speaking to each other, communicating with each other seamlessly. Then it's all about use case. Once you have these modules, then it is about the use case where you want to have, let's say, from the production floor to supply chain, a certain relationship established where a particular raw material that getting turned into a final product that going to supply chain, how do I want to sketch the workflow so that end-to-end visibility, ending up in a dashboard, I am able to see, is something that we are able to bring together in the platform. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to take a pause here. We probably have around roughly half an hour left for any kind of Q&A. I think Mr. Molly was suggesting that we could wind up by 4:30. So I'll just conclude. Let me conclude by stating that you just saw what the low-code development platforms are, right? A low-code development platform is one where you can jump in, develop applications very, very quickly. When you just develop standalone application, fine, great. It is still automating something that you're doing manually. But when you get applications that are having the power to exchange data with your existing asset, be it a software asset or be it a hardware asset, that's when you start leveraging the power of low code. That's when you start having a connected network, a connected landscape when it comes to your IT systems. And that's when you want to have smart factories that exchange data, that make boundaries, geographical boundaries disappear, that make departmental boundaries disappear, that will actually give you end-to-end transparency, end-to-end visibility around automations, transactions that are flowing inside your organization, right? With that, I'll just wind up the presentation. One more quick point I'll just add as a final thing. All these apps that we create on the platform are mobile friendly. So in case you want to even access those, for example, that scenario where you had the DTDC guy, he will get pinged on his mobile saying that there is a consignment waiting for you. So go ahead, acknowledge it, and then come pick it up. So all of those are mobile and tablet requirements, which means that even on the go, you are able to access your transactions and have end-to-end automation accomplished. So let me just take a pause here, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll open up the floor for any questions, any suggestions, any recommendations, any thought, any clarifications that you need. Please feel free. Or Mr. Molly, in case you want to moderate the question so that we don't have too much of conflict, I'd welcome you for that.
No, I'm not going to moderate. I've just opened the chat box.
Okay.
Before that, I want to say that it is a brilliant 1 hour. It is very packed. It is like an action thriller movie. Mr. Binith, I must thank you for that, because this is normally it take 3 hours to explain like this. I think you IT guys are also, not only you develop apps fast, but also make presentations fast.
Thank you.
It will take 3 hours to make the same thing.
Thank you for your thoughts. It is as you said, it is IT versus OT, right?
Is equal to IoT.
Is equal
IT
to
plus OT is equal to IoT.
Yeah,
So you and me together make IoT today. But I want to tell you that I learned something on low code today. But when you reveal that secret at the end, that when you do the connectors, you move from 3.0 to 4.0. Is the connectors or something what people call in general terms the API?
API, absolutely. So
Okay,
API is one of the ways in which connectivity happens.
Connected.
There are different types of APIs, the RESTful APIs, the SOAP API. So with ours is a completely REST API based platform. So you could have API based connectivity established, but for API based connectivity, it's like a telephone, right? When you call from here, the other guy also should have the telephone. Otherwise, you will not be able to speak. So he also needs to be an API compliant system. Otherwise, this API and his API cannot speak. In many cases, we find that hardware devices are not API compliant. They'll have drivers, okay, in the IT language. So we integrate with those, driver softwares. And that's what most of these hardware players are also doing with Industry 4.0. They get the sense to actually make their product outside available for integration. They're also providing drivers to which other systems like a low-code platform can come and connect and exchange information.
Very good, very good. So there are some questions in the text box.
Okay.
I will ask the person if he's still there to ask, because the person had left by now. There's no point in asking that question. Siddharth Nandakumar, go ahead, sir. Please ask the question. Oh, you're only doing a vote of thanks. Okay. Siddharth Nandakumar has no question. He was delighted he was able to connect. Okay, sorry. I'm coming today. I think 50 plus joined, but some are dropping out.
Okay.
Mr. Balaji from TCAPS. Do we need to upload one-time upload about FA data? Please go ahead and ask this question and explain to Mr. Binith.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Binith San and BCIC team for this wonderful session. Binith San, I have a couple of questions. First, do we need to, since you showed this fixed asset data, which can be directly picked from the ERP, is it a one-time upload we have to do as a part of our initial configuration, or do that have any connectors so that it can directly connect to our backend database, let it be SQL or Oracle database? That is my first question. I have second question also. What you have shown is a very good configuration on the front end, which is a low code application. In what platform it is being built? Definitely it might be some front end, either ASP.NET or Angular or Node. Such kind of any kind of front end application should have been built upon. That's why it is such a fantastic, very user friendly application. It is also there so that anybody can configure.
Thank you for both those questions, Balaji. Great question. I think the first question that you had was, do you need a one-time load of all your assets details so that you are able to refer to that, right? See, there are two answers to this. The first answer is your ERP already has the data. Your ERP is already having the inventory of the entire set of assets. So every time you want to actually get some information from there, you can have a connector that will go poll the ERP databases table, get that specific data that you are looking for, and then populate it here. Okay, this is one approach that you could take if the number of transactions that you are going to execute are on the lower side. For example, fixed asset transfer. How many assets will you transfer every day? Maybe in a month you might transfer, I don't know, 20 assets. It depends on each of the use case, right? The number of transfers might not be huge. So in that case, it is quite okay for us to actually connect to the ERP's database. They have the master set of assets there. And then from there, you will actually go ahead and get the relevant information that you can use in your low-code app. But assume that yours is an application that is processing thousands of transactions every single day. For example, the invoice management application that we're looking at. You are a big corporate and you have 20,000 or 50,000 invoices that you have to process every single day. Then let's say your customer ID and the customer name is maintained inside your ERP. When I type the customer ID on my low-code platform, the customer name should get auto-populated. If 50,000 times I need to go to the ERP and then pick that customer name and populate it here on my screen here, that's going to be a lot of load on ERP. You are unnecessarily just going and hitting his database and making his database busy, so that you can get that data on the low-code app that you have here. On those kind of scenarios, you will make a copy. Okay, so those are the scenarios where you will set up a sync process, something like let's say a nightly sync during off-peak hours. Let's say 11 o'clock at night, the master inventory data that's there in the ERP should flow over to the low-code database. So you maintain
a kind of job.
I'm sorry.
A kind of regular job.
It is kind of a typical, it could be a normal cron job also, which is just going to extract that data. Look at the delta. You don't need to bring the entire inventory every day. You have the one-time load that happened yesterday, for the first day. After that, any delta, any change that has happened on the database, only you need to bring in on a daily basis in the form of deletions, additions, or modifications. So that you can just do a comparison, and then those changes alone, you just bring over, get that updated in your system here. That way you have the concept of a SOR, a system of record, where your primary system is always ERP. You are only following that ERP. Any kind of the source of truth is your ERP. Tomorrow, if he goes wrong, you go wrong. That's fine. In both way, at least both of you are sync. The moment he gets corrected, you'll also get corrected. So depending on the number of transactions you have to process on a daily basis, to answer your question, Balaji, depending on the number of process you need to, number of transactions you need to process on a daily basis, you will take a call on whether it is a link that you need to hit to his database, or whether you need a sync, because that's going to depend, that's going to impact the performance of the third-party system also. I think that was your first question. The second question was around the technology stack that we use for the low-code platform. This is the entire architecture diagram. If I come to the technology stack, this is the tech stack. So we have, we are a Java shop. We use Java in the back. There are multiple engines we use. Okay, so there is a RabbitMQ, there is Memcache Office. So on the middle layer, we've completely Java-based, Spring-based technology. On our front end, we have AngularJS as the front end screens. We even use something called Telerik Kendo for some of the UI components that I showed you earlier in the designer. There is PWA, Progressive Web App, which means that the applications that you actually create on the platform are mobile compliant also. That's enabled through this. But the core WeP DMS platform is even available as native app on Android and iOS. And the backend, we have so many different components. We could be deployed on the cloud or on premise. We are compliant with Amazon S3, Azure, IBM software, or a NAS or a SAN device for on-prem deployments, etc. So many databases, indexing systems that we support. But of late, our strategy has been more around giving a Azure-based offering as a SaaS offering to our customers. Mr. Balaji, did I answer your questions?
Thank you, Mr. Binith. To prompt answer, sir. Thank you.
Oh, Binith had one more deck, and he brought it to the answering Balaji in such split second. Wow. So I don't know how many decks he has. Maybe you should do a master class later on. We will send a formal request for that, because there will be many training requirements about which we'll talk offline. There is a question by Dilip Darur. Could you please give some inputs regarding data security and license to use such tools?
Wonderful. That is also something that is really important, because many of the data that these kind of tools process are very critical business information. It could have financial data, it could have some customer data, your employee data. So in terms of data security, it is 2-3 layers, right? As I think it got partially, I stopped sharing, I'm sorry. It got partially, I think, mentioned even in there's a security architecture here, okay, where across multiple layers, you ensure security. Number one, this is all SSL encrypted. So all the data that you transfer through these applications, both at rest or during transit, they are encrypted. They are AES 256 encrypted. There are dedicated firewalls that prevent unauthorized access from outside. You can enable specific ports through which only you are able to access the system. As I had shown you earlier, there are login screens, so there are authentication mechanisms, one-way or two-way authentication that have password-based entry. There is detailed audit logs. So you could have each and every activity, each and every action that you're doing, those are logged in the system. There is a tamper-free audit trail in case you want to go back and later point of see what really happened. And there are all kinds of permission configurations. If you remember, you had seen that you could define the permissions and the application of those permissions across various layers. The storage also, players like Azure, AWS, they provide their own set of certifications, SOC 2, all kinds of certifications around the storage that they have when it comes to putting it on the cloud. But on our perspective here, again, we have a very layered architecture with multiple security aspects coming at each layer. One more thing that we do here is the typical architecture, physical architecture is something like this, where I am, accessing the system from outside. It will go through a firewall, through a dedicated port to the application server. Only the application server is exposed. Your database server and all the other servers are behind the app server. It's not exposed to the outside world. So only through the app server you are able to get this. This is the typical multi-cloud cluster format that we bring in. So just for your information, the demo that I showed you today on the WeP DMS, that engine, that is a software that's installed in Japan. So I was accessing that from Kerala, and with my user credentials, it's something that is sitting in an Amazon cloud in Tokyo, and I was actually showing you that. So there are all these kinds of layers that provide security, ensure security. We've done deployments to various, for example, the largest investment bank in Japan is one of our customers. So even multi-layer VAPT, vulnerability and penetration testings, all of those are areas where we are certified to ensure security. Mr. Dilip, I hope I answered your question.
Oh, brilliant. For every question, you have a slide. That is what is more impressive. And Mr. Premaraj Balurgi is asking, if he's there, he can ask, sir. Mr. Premaraj?
Yeah, Chandramouli sir, and thank you, Binith Ashok for wonderful explanation. And
they are all from Toyota Auto Components. Very, very
yeah,
keen people to learn.
Auto parts. We are in the phase of our embarking stage of automation, where we were looking into different tools which are available in market, something like UiPath or other things. Where when we looked into this particular low-code design or configuration tool, WePDMS, it is more easier than UiPath. So my question is just, can we have guest access to this your application and try a couple of our desired scenarios, and where we will have clarity on whether it is meeting expectation or will there be any modifications, because anything we cannot use end-to-end or 100% as we need. So any such modifications required, how do we take it forward? So this is a question which I just want to ask.
Wonderful. So 2 points, Mr. Premraj. Number one is you wanted to see if you could have a trial account where you can play around and then see how some of your scenarios could fit in. We can certainly help you with that. I am actually part of. I'll get our sales team. We have those people also in the call. They might want to reach out to you. So I don't know how you can probably get the coordinates, your contact coordinates shared, so they can reach out to you. Maybe it can come through some support from BCIC also. That is number one.
Yeah. Premaraj can type out his email ID now.
Okay. So with that,
yeah, sure.
The WP sales team is going to reach out to you. Okay.
Sir, I have a small question.
Sorry?
I have a small question. Can I ask?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Your good name, sir?
Sir, I'm working. Sir, I'm working on.
Your good
I'm as
name?
a dietitian come nutritionist. I'm dietitian Shopan Banerjee, Dr. Shopan.
Swapan Banerjee. Boliye, sir.
Yes, sir, from Belgaria. Sir, I'm working on one book chapter or article on Science Direct. Although I'm in nutrition field, but I'm working on Industry 4.0 and nutraceutical industry and related to public health nutrition output. So it's on about the common people, public health, and Industry 4 input as going to better to public health. So my question is, sir, if you don't mind, you have a very wonderfully present. It is a matter of overwhelming to see your presentation. If you do not have any copyright, so can I take some idea and some sort of your diagrams or any kind of where I can use in my book chapter with your permission? If you like to say, I will send an email, but I'm not going to copy. I do not know whether you have a copyright, but I like to have your some basic idea, because I am not in the Industry 4 and in technology. I'm as a nutrition field. I do not have any idea, but there are a lot of data and diagrams in Google.
Mr. Swapan Banerjee, what he's asking is, he's not specifically talking only about low code. If you want only about low code, we can get some help from Mr. Binith. If you want something more beyond that to Industry 4.0, I can be of help to you. You want to put it in a book, which so you can write a mail to us, to Bangalore Chamber of Commerce, and see anything which is not proprietary in nature. We can always give you some pictures to put it in your book. Not a big issue.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Please write a mail to Bangalore Chamber where you registered that for this webinar.
Yes.
Good. Premaraj
Yes,
already putting the IT department guest. One guest. His name is not there. IT department guest. I don't know who it is. He's saying if you wish to provide data entry screens to parties like visitors, customer suppliers, do we need license for them too? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think that was the other point. I think Premraj was mentioning. See, there are two pieces there, right? There was even Premraj. I'm sorry, I lost the thought. Maybe you're speaking about integration on UiPath or comparisons with UiPath, right? See, UiPath is a RPA, okay, a robotic process automation, kind of a software. So when we speak about RPA engines, there is a difference between RPA and BPM driven low code. RPA is where you automate your mundane, repetitive kind of activities, okay, where you don't have a lot of human intelligence required. You want to scrub some data, automatically go ahead, do this, and those kind of information or those kind of repetitive activities that are there, you can go ahead and do that on an RPA. Whereas a BPM plus low code is a solution where you would still want the human to engage for some kind of a judicious decisioning activity. I want to do some eyeball matching and I want to see if this is the data, in which case I want to approve or not, or I want to, kind of add my own thoughts on top of it. So all of those kind of things you cannot use. RPA is not the choice. It is a low code platform that will come into play there, where manual elements have to be certainly, any kind of those kind of inputs have to go in through a low code platform. But once that is done, for example, going and then updating 50,000 records one after the other to the SAP, you can certainly get a UiPath to do that. So that's the reason why, if you remember in our example, I was just showing that after the finance approval and manager approval and all that, there was a UiPath integration I was doing. So you can go into UiPath and go ahead and make him post the data into ERPs, financial modules, or things like that. So RPAs and low code are not competing technologies. They are complementary technologies. Low code will actually allow you to do the manual piece of things and then give the repetitive activities to RPA. These days, the industry acronym or the industry terminology is hyper automation, which is a combination of RPA plus low code. So if you go to some of these players like Pega or some of these major US kind of players, you are still going to find some players who will give a combination of a low code plus BPM plus ML algorithms around it, which is typically referred to as hyper automation.
Wow, this is the first time I'm hearing the word hyper automation. Well. Now I have many questions from my other colleagues in BCIC. So I would like to ask one very, very vital question, which all of us must be thinking today. Will the low code platform kill innovation? Will it put software programmers out of job? This is my friend asking from BCIC chamber.
That's
Will
a great
low code
question.
platforms kill innovation? Will it put software programmers out of job? Instead of
It
creating
is
more
not going
employment, will it create more unemployment? See, more automation means more people leaving.
No. So
hyper automation means human being disappear.
hyper automation means humans can vanish from the planet.
Vanish.
So that is not what is the reality. So there are boundaries. You know, when you have a requirement in front of you to automate, right? There is a judicious decision that you need to take. Is it something that you want to do on a low code platform, or is it something that you want to develop scratch up? Okay, that is a very vital decision, and you know, typically the drivers for that decision is, in case the application is of a moderate to high complexity application, that is when a low code should be considered, where the amount of customization, the amount of custom logic that you want to insert into the low code, you want to you know, go ahead and do that for a medium to large complexity application. Definitely low code should be the way forward. But anything that is super complex, that speaks with 50 systems, that reconciliates data, you know, monthly batch recons, or any kind of you know, very, very complex adaptations that you want to do, it will not be wise to do that on a low code platform, purely because low codes are typically meant for you know, rapid automation of moderate complexity application. I thought Premraj also had, you know, one of those questions where he was asking, how do you bring in customizations, or where do you write the custom code, right, Premraj? So this is where, so this example that I showed you earlier, we were only having no code. I did not show any place where there was coding that was being done, right? Whereas if I go to that same application, sorry, in our app studio, now where does this coding come into picture? If I go to the BCIC, the same, or ours was something else, right? Webinar invoice management, invoice management application. There are specific places where you can write custom code that will come here called scripts. Okay, for example, in our workflow, you remember there was somebody who was submitting a invoice. It will go for them to the manager for approval, and then it will end. So if you want some specific logic to be inserted, the moment the transaction submitted is done and it has not reached the manager, you can go to the scripting control and write it as a post script. You will say, as soon as the start is done, submission is done, okay, you want some logic to happen, and that even we give sample scripts here. So this is the entire, you know, Groovy based JavaScript layer that comes in. This is a typical, you know, custom coding that you want to speak about. Maybe you want to do some computation into 18% GST for some kind of material, which is 12% GST for, you know, another kind of material, or you want to go ahead, sync up with some SAP purchase data, do want some computations, calculations, things like that. You can certainly do that as custom code, custom logic here. The same for each and every step. Before the manager does something, after the manager does something, you want to have custom code written. You can certainly go ahead and insert that logic here. This is one place. The other place is you want the screen to be interactive. For example, you are capturing the PAN number of a person. Now the PAN number is 5 characters followed by 4 digits followed by 1 character. So you will go to the form section. Those are the so-called UI scripts. Okay, where as soon as I tab out of the PAN number field as I'm filling up the form, as soon as I tab out, I should get an error message. So as you are doing something on the screen, you want to have some interactions out of it. Maybe I entered, the amount field immediately with GST tax amount. It should show the calculation on a subsequent field. So those kind of UI-based interactive scripts you do in this scripting element here. So these are for any kind of outside of general things that you might want to call it, right? Anything that is not generic, very, very custom, very, very specific for your application. You want to put your logic, inject your logic into the application with somebody who is in the modern day world called citizen programmer. He is not a full-fledged, expert programmer. A citizen programmer who is somebody who knows basic scripting. He can actually come and then enable medium to large complexity applications for you in the platform.
Great, great. I think a lot of good clarity. I have one very interesting question come from my friend.
Sure.
I think he belongs to Rajinikanth cadre. So does low code application also create code? Like Rajinikanth in Robo, he creates further robos. The Robo creates robos, I think they are all hell-bent on eliminating the human being. So this person is asking, can low-code application create low-codes?
Your comparisons are very nice, Mr. Mouli, to say the least. But in fact, it's a very good question. Okay, there are low-code platforms who can create code. There are some platforms, there are two types of low-code. When you speak about low-code, there are declarative low-codes and then there are imperative low-codes. Declarative low-code is an example that I showed you now, where it's like me going to the supermarket. I'm just going to pick up everything that I want, go to the billing section, pay the money, publish it into the store and get out. Then everything is mine. I can go ahead and start doing this. Okay. This is the example that we looked at just now. There is the imperative low-code also, where after you do all this configuration, then you can click a button called generate code. What he will do is, with whatever drama you have done on that screen with drag and drop and pull and point and click kind of functionalities, it will try to convert that into a raw code and it will give it to a programmer who might be interested in something like that. In case he want to add his own complex logic and make it even more powerful and add a lot of muscle into that, he might want to do that. But imperative kind of low-code platforms, the amount of I'd say correctness of that code, there are a lot of questions. With just these drag and drop process flows, I mean, how much of that actually gets translated into good modular maintainable code by the engine is always a question. But if you still want to get some code out of it and you're a programmer, you're excited about doing coding and you want to get some code and then you want to do something on top of it, there are imperative low code platforms, but still in its nascent stages, what I'd say.
Oh, what you're saying is some people want to sustain their job. So, so they would like to still keeping. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So you are not only,
you
seem to, Mr. Ashok, you are very mischievous. You are trying to threaten jobs and also you are giving safety wall for reviving the jobs. Great. You seem to be, better than.
One of the first low code platforms, it was not really called low code then. It came in decades back, where WordPress and all these kind of guys actually gave similar solutions that could have been deemed as low code, but it is not really called low code. It never replaced any jobs.
No, these kind of problems happen in manufacturing also, because people, when they said 3D printing, nobody was listening to them. The moment 10 years back, nobody was listening. Now they say additive manufacturing. Let's sit and listen.
Yeah.
But the difference is, at that time it was for plastics. Now metal also is possible. Okay. Now coming to a very, very important question. See, no project gets approved in this country because our CFOs have to be convinced. A CFO, sometimes he also looks after IT department. That's even more deadly. So he is asking a question, one of my CFO. I think this must be very, very interesting for our audience. How to compute return on investment for low code platforms. Khatarnak people. Everything ROI. Return on investment for low code platform.
these days, absolutely, as you said, there is a financial justification that we have to give
Industry
for each and every
4.0, only
Yeah.
Nirmala Sitharaman can solve Industry 4.0, I can tell you. 300,000 lakh crores she has given to the MSMEs, but nobody knows where the money is. At least they should use for low-code development.
Yeah,
Bataiye.
absolutely. So to come to that question, Molly ji and your friend. So basically, see the ROI for low-code platforms. It's the computation logic is very simple. I am going to implement a finance management or an invoice management solution in low-code for you. What is the cost overheads on the company? 2. There is a license cost for the low-code platform. And then there is the so-called professional services, which are some services, the configuration cost or some customization or scripting or anything that you might have to do. Obviously, these are the 2 cost elements that come in. Okay. Now, if I were to develop this from scratch, what is the cost? These are stacked against each other to see, is it really the ROI in terms of ROI? Is it a low code or a from scratch that I need to do? But in general, how manufacturing companies are looking at that logic is when you do a low code, you will never think about one application because low code is like a mother, right? Giving birth to children. Each child is an application. So when you think about low code platforms, you need to at least think about 10 different use cases, 10 different departments where I need application that I'm doing things manually right now. If I were to automate those processes, what's the kind of advantage I'm going to get? So 10 applications, if that becomes a reality through low code, compared to the cost of 10 different applications developed from scratch by IT programmers to the cost of savings that you are actually going to generate by automating the manual work. These are the 3 items that are stacked against each other in deriving the ROI. But the general thumb rule is as the number of applications increase, the ROI becomes better in low code world. Because let's say there is a user named let's say Mr. Chandramouli, who is user in 5 applications in low code. Maybe he is an auditor, he is doing something on the quality inspection side of things. He is also into leave management. He wants a grievance management application, 5 different applications. He'll still be counted as one license, one user license. It's not based on the number of applications that the license goes. So that's where you say that as a number of applications increase, your ROI gets better.
No, ROI, there is a very interesting, humorous point. The denominator is always very, very certain. Investment. The return is uncertain.
That is always spoke.
Any amount of justification you do, I will only know after the experience.
True.
Okay. Anyway, that's a jokes apart. I think these are the questions coming from somebody is asking, does this work on premise?
It does. We are tuned for on-premise also, but as a strategy, I'd say that on-premise is something that we opt for when there is a fairly large user base that you want to go. But the standard model is certainly cloud, because in cloud there's a lot of scalability related aspects you can seamlessly handle. But that said, on-premise is a definite capability. We can.
I'll tell you where this point comes from. It's very sad, many people think cloud means it is insecure. But when we open the app, any app you say, we keep saying yes, and then it allows you, right? Whatever we do on mobile phone, all our apps on the mobile phone, we had trusted somebody and kept on saying yes, because we want that app. Without knowing, the entire mobile phone is operating only on cloud. Our banking apps are operating on cloud.
Absolutely. The banking apps
dangerous.
Are
our
Aadhaar related information,
income tax, GST. So there is a wrong notion that cloud means insecure. No, other day I was talking to an aerospace company. We almost got the order for this IT company. There is a beautiful IoT company, Coimbatore. They got the order already, almost. They said, is it on-premise? No, on-premise means it will be double the cost, triple the cost. Cost is higher. Because they have to do cabling and so many infrastructural issues. Cloud means subscription model. It is not only lower, but also subscription model is possible. Oh, aerospace. They think aerospace means only the aircraft can fly in the cloud. Why can't an IT system be in the cloud? It's secure. Like you showed the cyber security, you showed a circuit diagram. That is the education that many people require, both on the philosophical side as well as the technological side. On that note, I would like to request all the participants today to fill up the feedback form which our admin has posted. It is called Feedback Form Enabling Manufacturing in the Digital Era, Role of Code Development Platform in Digital Manufacturing. Well, digital manufacturing is an area which maybe it requires more time for Binith to explore. But at least today he has explored it's like a masterclass 1. Masterclass 2, 3, etc. will follow in the future. It's a series of masterclasses. And I'm sure the 50-odd people who joined today will be ready to join the next masterclasses on a paid basis. Because, see, the first webinar is always awareness creation. Thereafter, a company like Technomics can do training program on very nominal fees. Thousands and thousands of people, they want to learn these things. And BCIC is got an academy. It has got an academy to encourage experts like you and students to come together and create a revenue model of training in which definitely Technomics should get the share of the revenue model. So that is how we operate. I'm just telling this to some participants who are very keen to know more deeper in this. There are at least 3 IT people here. I could feel in the class today. So the non-IT people would like to know only the application, but the IT people want to know the deeper aspect. And then there are many startup ventures and other people. So, Mr. Binith, you want to say any important remark before we close?
There are 2 things. Number one, I just wanted to take up a moment and once again extend my gratitude to everybody who has joined this call. I hope you found this useful. I hope it leads you to think in many ways in which you can automate things at your end and benefit out of it. Number one. Number 2 is also I just wanted to say once again a big thanks to Mr. Chandramouli ji. I think I've thoroughly enjoyed the interactions. I mean, not just in this meeting, there's some other calls that we've had. It'd be my pleasure to stay connected with you and
thank you, sir. On the day when low code becomes no code, then I think my value for conducting webinars will come to 0. So on that humorous note, Mr. Binith, it's a pleasure interacting with you. You had so much of knowledge on the subject. You did a live demo, which many people don't have courage to do. And the way the mouse was moving, I was worried. It must be a phenomenal mouse, which is required to do such kind of a... See, I bought a mouse last week because my previous mouse, it refused to cooperate. See, these are very deadly devices, which can make or break a webinar. Thank you so much. Mr. Siddharth Nandakumar is also written saying he has made a note of all the requirements of the customers. Siddharth can probably type out his email ID. So those who do not have it will also note it down. And remember one thing. This webinar BCIC will also, I will ask them to send it to the other 800 customers who did not join today. So therefore, it gives a wide publicity for Technomics as well as to WeP. On that note, thank you so much, Mr. Binith.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Rupa. Thank you, Prithvi. and thanks for all the participants.
Yeah, thank you, Chandramouli sir. It was wonderful to hear you sharing the
Acha,
session
நீங்க
so well.
இருந்தீங்களா? காஃபி குடிக்க போயிட்டீங்கன்னு நினைச்சேன். சரி, சரி.
No, sir. I
Acha,
kept listening.
in which case you should do the honors of, I think you should show the thank you slide at least. You know, you have a nice,
Yeah,
that
sure. What about this one, sir? You like to have the national anthem played?
national anthem not required. Just
Not
do
required.
the
We'll have the thank you banners. No problem.
thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
The national
Thank
anthem
you,
we do for events, not for
Okay,
classes. Okay, that's
Thank
a
you. Thank you.
Thank you,
that's a
BCIC.
thanks chart to Mr.
Thanks.
Binith, our resource person
Thanks,
today.
Binith.
Yeah.
Pleasure is. Thank you all.
Now people are warming up and I'm getting more questions, but I have to close. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Prithvi.
you all,
Please
sir.
coordinate the questions from various people.
Sure, sir.
Mr. Binith, when you come to Bangalore, we'll have a coffee in BCIC office.
Pleasure is going to be mine. Certainly look forward to it, Mr. Molly.
And thanks our web colleagues also. Please inform them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Binith.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye, sir. Thank you so much.